So what we see is when the Prophet ﷺ is now continuing to give da'wah, nobody's really stopping him. The Quraysh, Abu Lahab has expressed his not very happy. A lot of the other leaders are not that happy either. Abu Talib doesn't take a stand at first. So nobody really knows what to do. So you have to go and approach him, which is, again, sometimes we think of these stories and we don't humanize the fact that there are actually humans in there. That there's Abu Talib there, who's a human, who's got a nephew who wants to look after. The Prophet ﷺ is putting his whole honor on the line, standing on a mountain and telling everybody something which they don't want to hear. Now, Islam's become a religion which is now known as the rebellious religion. If you join Islam, you're part of the rebels. You become the enemy of the state. So the Prophet ﷺ is now enemy number one. Abu Talib is almost, he's not saying anything. He's not said, I'm supporting the Prophet ﷺ, but he doesn't say he's not. So now people have to clarify this with him. So now what they do is the leaders of the Quraysh come together and decide that we need to sort the problem out. So fundamentally what's in their mind is that we need to have a chat with the Prophet ﷺ. That's what's in their mind. But to go there, they remember all their customs which they have, which means that they have to go through Abu Talib. So now they start sending delegations to Abu Talib to go and have a chat with him and see how they can get the Prophet ﷺ and essentially have permission to either kill him or to send him away somewhere. This is their plan. This is generally the plan. And we find this explicitly when they finally come to Abu Talib and they actually specifically request him for, and to exchange him for someone else, and they actually tell him that we will get rid of him. So the first time they come to Abu Talib, and they express the obvious. They say that, look, your nephew is now causing us a lot of problems. He's saying bad against what they say is that he's saying bad about our forefathers. So he's saying this, and obviously the Prophet ﷺ, their forefathers were the same as the forefathers of the Prophet ﷺ. So when he came, he would talk about the idols. He wouldn't explicitly talk bad about the forefathers. But these people, they would have this within their culture, just like even nowadays we have this. He's saying bad about your forefathers. So this is something which you cannot tolerate, and something in their culture they could not tolerate, because again the family had a very, very big part to play. So they said to him that either you stop the Prophet ﷺ or we will do so. So either you stop him or you give us permission to not interfere when we sort him out. So it's one of these two. They're basically taking permission that can we sort out the Prophet ﷺ, or either you do it. So when this discussion happens now, the books mention that Abu Talib, he managed to somehow, again he sat on the fence, he didn't give any kind of answer, but he managed to sidestep the issue. He managed to not give an answer. This is what he did. And then the meeting ended and they left. So they told him that you need to stop him, but he didn't really, Abu Talib didn't give an answer, and they left and they went back. So now everybody's hoping that it would kind of go away, but obviously the Prophet ﷺ continues giving da'wah. They were hoping Abu Talib might call him privately and have a chat with him, but he's continuing giving da'wah. Now when he carries on giving da'wah, the Quraysh come again. This time they come much more severely. This is the second visit. So they come and essentially they say that now the Prophet ﷺ, he's still giving da'wah, he's causing so many problems now. If you don't stop him, we will basically come and we will stop him, even if this means that we have a full-scale war. There will be a complete war. Now all that's left is Abu Talib and the honor of Abu Talib which he has. He is very, very honored. He could be considered one of the leaders of the Quraysh. But now when they come to him, the first time they came they said nicer. This time they came, they say, we know you, we acknowledge your high position. They started the speech like this. But now, unless you move out the way, we are going to have to go to war on this. So now Abu Talib is now against all of the Quraysh. All of the Quraysh have said that we are now in opposition to Abu Talib. Abu Talib again does not back down. He doesn't say, okay, I'm going to definitely say this. He again stays quiet. They don't receive a response. But Abu Talib, without backing down, the people leave again and they go. And this time, this worries Abu Talib a lot, because now they've been very forceful. Usually this doesn't happen. If we think about it in families, we try not to get this aggressive. We try never to, especially with the leaders. Now people may be, they may be rude to their slaves or to their brothers or some other family member, but to take it formally to such a high level, basically the government of Makkah at that time, he's taken it to another of the leaders, and basically they've said that unless you sort this out, we're going to have a war with you. We don't like this, we're not tolerating this, and we are going to go to war. So now this was a very big problem, and he got very, very worried. So Abu Talib, remember this is something which will never happen before with Abu Talib. He was so respected. Something like this where everyone comes and says that you must do this or else, basically. And this is how he was approached. And it's very, very rude, it's very, very in his face. So this is something which is a very big thing for Abu Talib. So now Abu Talib, he gets a little bit worried, and he calls the Prophet ﷺ. And he says to the, and this is obviously quite famous, that he says to the Prophet ﷺ that have pity on me, have mercy on me. You know, the Quraysh came, the leaders, and they're saying that you're saying this, this and this. So, you know, why can't you just, you know, leave this message? Why can't you stop doing what you're doing? If you stop what you're doing, they'll stop coming to me, they'll stop worrying me, they'll stop worrying you, all problems will be solved. And this is what Abu Talib suggested to the Prophet ﷺ, that if you leave calling to Islam, we'll have ease in the world. So the Prophet ﷺ, he then, you know, the problem is when Abu Talib said this, the Prophet ﷺ, he felt that this means that now Abu Talib is not going to support him anymore. That this is the end of Abu Talib's support. That's it. He's not going to take it. He doesn't want to go to war with everyone. He can't tolerate the pressure which the Quraysh leaders are putting on him. So therefore Abu Talib at this point, in the mind of the Prophet ﷺ, is that Abu Talib is no longer going to support me in my case of furthering Islam. If I continue giving da'wah to Islam, Abu Talib's support will be taken away. This is what the Prophet ﷺ understood. So the Prophet ﷺ actually had tears in his eyes. In fact, people said he burst into tears. Tears started coming out. And he said to Abu Talib that even if I swear that even all the way until I die, I will continue with this message. I will continue giving this message. And either this deen spreads in the world, or either I end up dying as a result of the deen, of trying to spread the deen in the world. One of these two things will happen. Either I will spread the deen, or either I will perish. This is what he said. And then he said that, he said, by Allah, if these people were to put the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left hand, even then I wouldn't give up giving this da'wah which I've come to. And this is, again, this is his response to Abu Talib. This is when he's dejected now. He thinks his support's gone. So now, remember this sun in the right and the moon in the left. The sun and the moon, these are all the biggest forms of guidance. So now, this is a little bit difficult to understand, but the Sufi scholars always include this point, and many of the other scholars do as well in the Seerah point. Why did the Prophet ﷺ say sun and moon in one hand? And because obviously the Prophet ﷺ, in some parts of the Quran, he is described as coming with the light, as coming with the nur, and we understand Islam to be the nur as well. So the Prophet ﷺ came with these lights. Now the Prophet ﷺ compares his own Islam with these lights. So now he's come with Islam, and he's going to give this to the people. And the thing which they're asking him to stop is bringing this light. They're saying, don't bring light, don't bring Islam, stop it. That's their demand. So you have their demand on one side and bringing the light on one side. So the Prophet ﷺ, he's trying to make them understand how badly he cannot accept that their demand is just not important enough. The light is so important. For him, even if they were to give him this much light, the sun in one hand and the moon, which is all light, even if they were to give him that much light, the light which he's come with is so much more important than fulfilling their demand. Their demand is stop calling towards Allah, stop calling towards Islam. So now giving this example of light shows that the Prophet ﷺ himself, he's trying to tell him that your demands are worth nothing to me, the light which I brought is so much more valuable than this. So that's why he gives this this realization of light, and this is one of the things that we take from this. And even obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran that these people, they will try and extinguish the light which the Prophet ﷺ has come with. So people mention this verse of the Quran that يُرِيدُونَ أَن يُطْفِئُوا نُورَ اللَّهِ بِأَفْوَاهِهِمْ, that they'll try and say different things and get rid of the nur of Allah and try and play down the Quran. So this is one thing which they say. And then finally what we see is the Prophet ﷺ said this, that even if they were to give me the sun and the moon, I will still not stop. Then the Prophet ﷺ, he hears that Abu Talib here responds. So the Prophet ﷺ is very sad, he's dejected, he almost starts walking off. Abu Talib then calls him and he says that, I will never surrender you to your enemies. You carry on doing as you please, you carry on calling to Islam. I personally will not give you up. So this is the support of Abu Talib which he gets. And again, Abu Talib could be considered as one of the strongest leaders of the Quraysh at that time, and he continued to support the Prophet ﷺ, based on which the Prophet ﷺ was allowed to continue. And this is how much we see that the Prophet ﷺ, he was dependent on Abu Talib for this time as well. How much value Abu Talib had for him. And the third visit is the Quraysh. They come again a third time. So now they came once, they came twice. Again, they're trying to stop the Prophet ﷺ, trying to get rid of this problem which they see in their society. And this is now the third time when somebody comes to Abu Talib. So the Quraysh come to Abu Talib, and this time they all come. And in one of the other clans there was a young man called Amara bin Wahid, and the Quraysh offered him. They said, this guy is very intelligent, he's quite handsome, he's quite, he knows what he's doing, he's very useful. So what you do is you give us the Prophet ﷺ, and you take this young man, and this is a good exchange. You've got an intelligent person, we've got a good intelligent person, so we swap it. Some of the narrations even mention that they actually said to Abu Talib that we will kill the Prophet ﷺ, and you can take this person. Abu Talib, obviously he said at this point that, what kind of ridiculous offer is this? Somebody who I've brought up for 40 years, for 30 years I brought up, his mother passed away at 34 years, I brought him up for so long, and now you're saying that give me him so you can dispose of him, and I then have to look after another person who's younger. So obviously Abu Talib, he did not agree. This was a proposition which he just did not understand. But a lot of the people of the Quraysh were surprised that Abu Talib refused this, because they noticed the pressure on him. They thought the pressure is going to get to him now. That there's so much pressure from the leaders, from the whole of the city, just accept it. But he stayed firm and he stayed steadfast. And obviously this was the defining point. In reality we can say this was the last straw, because they tried 3 times, and very often when somebody tries 3 times, that's usually the last time. They fully gave up all hope in trying to convince Abu Talib to be happy with them. I mean, it's a ridiculous proposition if you think about it as well. What kind of Abu Lahab, who was trying to almost destroy his own nephew. But Abu Talib, again, it was his nephew as well, but he'd brought him up in his own house, so we know a little bit more. Abu Talib was the uncle who he brought. We all learnt this, from the age of 8, when his grandfather passed away. Abu Talib was looking after the Prophet ﷺ. So there was a lot of love there. So it's very difficult for Abu Talib to even consider this kind of thing to happen. He was literally like his son, we know from the narrations. He treated him like he would treat his sons as well. So this is one thing we learn from Abu Talib, that this is something which didn't make sense. And eventually this meant that the Muslims and the people that supported the Muslims kind of had to separate themselves from everyone else. So remember, the open call happens. Islam is now a rebellious religion. If you're part of Islam, you're part of this coup. Now, even nowadays, when people join protests and things in certain countries and they oppose the government, then they get arrested and they're treated as rebels and Khawarij and this kind of thing. But here, at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the whole of everybody is following Islam is a problem to the people of Makkah. So they treat them as rebels. They treat them as traitors of the state. So they really are very, very harsh on these people, and the punishments are very, very harsh. What Abu Talib does at this point is he gets his whole clan together themselves, and he gets Banu Muttalib together as well. So the 2 closest families of the Prophet ﷺ, these 2 clans, and he gets them all, and officially gets them to declare that they will support the Prophet ﷺ. And it's something very important. So everybody feels now that they're part of this family of Islam. They are going to support the Prophet ﷺ regardless of what happens. Before this, that feeling wasn't really there. There wasn't this all together, we're all in this together. Abu Talib being the leader, he had the power to do this. So he got everyone together, and he told everybody that was there that we're now going to support the Prophet ﷺ. The whole of Banu Hashim, the clan of the Prophet ﷺ, every single person came behind the Prophet ﷺ and assured him that they would support the Prophet ﷺ. There were generally 4 uncles who are known of the Prophet ﷺ. I have to estimate it somehow, but it's great.
Quraysh is quite big.
He's about 1,000 in the Quraysh.
That's what I'm saying.
So if you do, probably less than that. So Banu Hashim, so Quraysh is the overall, and then you have loads of clans inside. So Banu Hashim is one of the clans inside. So you're looking less than 100 definitely. Yeah. So this is one of the things. Again, not all of them became Muslims. Abu Talib, who caused the whole assurance, he didn't become Muslim himself. So this is one thing that we are seeing here, that a lot of people, because of their tribe, are supporting, because the leaders said do this. So now Abu Lahab, he was the only person from Banu Hashim to not follow Abu Talib. Everybody else followed. Again, it was that family thing. Just like we see that it's just easier to follow the family. It's easier to stay happy with the family. And then whatever the leader tells you to do, you do it. This is the power of Abu Talib and how much help he gave to the Prophet ﷺ, how much support they had behind the Prophet ﷺ and supporting the Muslims. And just to finish off one last story, which is that the Prophet ﷺ, just to try and understand one more point, is that just to remind ourselves, the Prophet ﷺ is now giving open da'wah. So he's going publicly, giving people da'wah. Some narrations say he would go into the streets and give da'wah. And we mentioned this last week as well. Prophet ﷺ would go and call people towards Allah. And then Abu Lahab would follow him behind. And he would say that, don't listen to this man. He has left the deen of the forefathers, of our forefathers. So that he would tell people, don't listen to him. In other narrations, he would tell people, this person is mad, don't listen to him. He would send people away from Islam. The Prophet ﷺ calling people to Allah, Abu Lahab is calling them to Jahannam, right behind him. Just following right behind the Prophet ﷺ. His uncle, respected uncle, is saying this. And we notice from this point, he made it his personal mission. So Abu Lahab, as in what that means is Abu Lahab actually made it his personal mission. It was actually he made a concerted effort to do it. We don't always understand that he actually physically made a point of his life. It was his personal thing in his life. I'm going to oppose the Prophet ﷺ. Like, it wasn't just, okay, we're going to try and stop Islam spreading, we're going to try and protect the idols. He now became a public enemy of Islam. He was going to oppose Islam come what may. And we notice this further down, that the da'wah against Islam and these kind of missions which happen against Islam were actually very well organized. Sometimes they would come together and have a whole meeting, how do we stop Islam? It's happened a lot, and we know this. Maybe in a couple of weeks we'll do these meetings as well, where they all come together. That people are coming for Hajj. What do we say to them? How do we tell them not to listen to the Prophet? And they actually would have people, and we'll come to this later. But the point from here, we can know that Islam is now a force to be reckoned with, to the extent that the leaders are taking it so seriously that they're making a point to stop people from entering Islam. That they're taking it so seriously that they are making a point to actually tell people that don't go to Islam, don't listen to Islam. Abu Lahab's following the Prophet around saying don't listen to him. So now it's a force which has gained enough momentum to be reckoned with, so people are now scared, and now the leaders are so worried that they're trying to do as much as they can to stop people from converting to this religion. So this is the majority of what we're trying to cover. Again, we're now just into about 4 years. So remember, the 3 years was the secret call. So they're called secret. And now the Mount Safa incident happened, and we're just after that. So this is just a follow-up to that, where they came to Abu Talib. This happened over a few months. So if you want to know where we are chronologically, there's 3 years have happened. We're into the 4th year of prophethood now. And inshallah we'll carry on from about 3.5 years. And that will be next week when the Hajj season comes and all of these different things, inshallah. And inshallah we'll carry on from next year. So I make dua Allah gives me and all of us the ability to understand and act upon what's been said.